Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I promised I'd do a Q&A this week, so that's what I'm going to do now. You sent many questions in, which I'm going to try and get through as many as I can. I should start off straight away by saying I'm playing window roulette here. It is so hot here that I've had to open windows on both sides of where I filmed this. That can mean anything. That can mean the bizarre ice cream truck from, you know, various Stephen King books, movies, TV shows, whatever you want to call it, that goes by and plays the most horrific music. That may come along. It is very much window roulette. It could be dogs barking. And I know every time I say it's really hot, lots of American people go, oh my God, why haven't you got air conditioning? As if that's a thing that's often used over here in houses, and it's not. We just look like this very sweaty people, quite frankly, whenever we get a bit of heat because we can't handle it. Also, want to say thank you very much to everyone that sent me very kind birthday messages yesterday. A very nice day. Yeah, it was very nice. Got lots and lots of messages. It was very kind of you all. Thank you so much. Had another busy one today as well. As I said in the last video, my oldest daughter had a graduation ceremony, which was fantastic. Very hot again. Lots of very clever. She's an accountant, so lots of financially clever people. Mathematicians, maybe you could call them. That's not my kind of world. Funny enough, my dad was an accountant, but I think the only kind of thing that I was good at with the numbers was Connect 4. That was about my limit, really. Certainly when it came to numbers, maybe words. A bit better at words. Not great, but a bit better, I guess. But yeah, maths, accountancy, certainly not my strong point. She's a very clever girl and she's done very well for herself, so it was lovely to go to her graduation today. And yeah, I'm back. I've changed out of my much smarter clothes, which I was melting in the heat in, and now I'm just melting in casual clothes. But there you go. So let's launch straight into the Q&A. The format of these, if you're not aware and you haven't seen these before, again, it's an apology in advance. How I like to do it, to really make it kind of an authentic answer that I haven't really pre-prepared and kind of thought of some middle-of-the-roady kind of safe answer. I just literally go through them for the first time. The odd one I might have noticed before, I might have seen it come up when the comments, when the video was first put up, the last one. But on the whole, I'm seeing most of these probably for the first time, or at least I've maybe just read through it. So I had one chap that got a little bit annoyed at that. He was, oh, you know, you could do your preparation, your research. And it's a bit like, well, I kind of quite like the in-the-moment feel about it, as almost as if like I'm in a quiz show or something, I guess. So, you know, in terms of housekeeping, there's not too much to really say in terms of developments, but hopefully there'll be little insights and bits into some of the answers. If I don't get to them in any of these answers, obviously Destiny, and apparently it's pronounced Udogie. So I am told Guesty did a little bit of research, and apparently rather than Udogie, it's Udogie. It's not pronounced. Someone told me because of his Nigerian heritage, it would have been pronounced Udogie. But apparently it's not, because I think he takes the Italian version. And anyway, Guesty's the one who's actually looked into it. Rob Guest, who does the podcast with me, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, he looked into it, and apparently it is Udogie, which is going to take me an age to get used to. And I'm going to say it the wrong way, so I apologise in advance. I am going to say it the wrong way. But hopefully we should have him confirmed, I'd imagine, by the end of this week. I don't think there's really much holding that up now. I think it's just a case of you know, doing all the bits and pieces. I think there's talk that he'll have his medical out in Italy rather than here. Although some eagle-eyed people noticed, I think on his Instagram, it was, I don't know whether he was saying he was in London or was using old photos of in London, I don't know. But either way, it will get done. It doesn't really impact the now anyway because he's heading back to Udogie, but that'll be a really good deal. And yeah, mostly at the moment, all focused on getting players out the door. But we'll come to that, because I'm pretty sure I remember seeing some questions about various people. Again, apologies if you can hear cars going by, but you've kind of got, you're balancing up. Either you hear the odd car go by and the crazy ice cream van, or you see a very sweaty, unpleasant looking man rather than just a generally unpleasant man. So right, let's crack into straight away the first one. Neil Calton asks, for the Q&A, given the number of foreign players that have joined the club this summer, is there a case for hanging on to Harry Winks to play in some of the early Champions League games and some cup games? No, is probably the way I'd go with that. Harry Winks needs to go. He needs to play football. He needs to find a new club. He's not in Conte's plans, and he's been told that. to bump up those numbers, ultimately, if you really need to, in the Champions League, if you're not aware, you have to have 4 club-trained players and 4 homegrown players. And then you're allowed, a minimum of 4 of each. And then 17 maximum non-locally trained players, as they're called, which, if you're not aware, I've gone into it probably far too many times. There's certain players who in Europe, really annoyingly, UEFA's rules, you only have to be of that national organisation rather than the UK, which means that Doherty, and it would have been Roden, Ben Davies are considered non-locally trained, and Eric Dyer, because of his formative years in Portugal, England international, who isn't considered English. It's just ridiculous. So Spurs have got these various players who, although I don't think Eric Dyer is in either one, but I think Doherty, Roden obviously doesn't matter now, and Davies are all considered homegrown in the Premier League list. Yeah, there's various articles. Type in, if you want to Google my name or Rob Guest's name, homegrown players, we've written about it a lot. There's a lot of stuff out there for you to read on it. Yeah, in a weird way, they're at this stage now where they just need to read. This is why I'm told the focus is, obviously they brought in Udogie. I'm never going to get used to the pronunciation of that. But that is obviously, it's not for the now, it's for the future. The focus on now is getting players out that door, because they are, with Roden's departure, I think 4 over currently in the home foreign player limit in the Champions League. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are, unless there's someone I'm forgetting. Troy Parrott scored last night. That's a little bit of housekeeping, because in case that doesn't come up in the thing. Scored his first goal for Preston, so that's fantastic. They won comfortably in the League Cup. So yeah, in essence, Harry Winks, no, I don't think he really needs to stick around just for the Champions League games. I think, you just put someone like, I guess, Harvey White maybe has to hang around, which I think would be unfair to him. It was interesting. Someone said to me the other day in the club that, they'll have to keep Alfie Devine around purely to be able to kind of register him in European stuff. I just don't think that would go down real well. I think Alfie is very keen to play football now. And I know they turned down a loan move to Leyton Orient last summer for him, and he really wanted to go and play football. He's a very ambitious lad, very good, very talented young player, midfielder. I'm hopefully getting to see them on Friday night at Stevenage. During the pandemic, of course, and after, and I think there's just been a lot of clashes with other events I've had to be at, and I haven't seen as many academy games in the last 2 years, and I really want to do the last 2 seasons. So I'm going to try to get back to more of those. So thankfully Friday looks like I'll have the press conference Hotspur way, and then I'm going to head off to Stevenage where Spurs are playing that night. So that should be a good game, and I think, obviously, if he's still around, I'm sure he probably will be by Friday, unless there's something that suddenly comes out of the woodwork before that. And I imagine there'll be a lot of interest. I'd imagine Alfie Devine should play on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I think they'll have to let him go out on loan. Jamie Cloud says, how do you not know Enter Sandman by Metallica? Yes, last week, as you may have been well aware by the fact I called it rock rather than heavy metal, that's heavy metal is probably one area. Quite an eclectic quite an eclectic music taste, but I would say heavy metal is probably not in there. My knowledge of it is very poor, other than any bits and pieces that have been used in movies mainly. Obviously, Metallica, is it Master of Puppets and Stranger Things? I know that one, obviously, that was very, very cool. But yeah, so they played a bit of music before Spurs win against Southampton, which I hadn't heard before. And so I said in the last video, about this... I called it rock. Of course, I meant heavy metal song, and that I didn't know what it was. And oh my goodness, hundreds of comments of people telling me, which is nice. I always like it. Obviously, it gets to a point where a lot of people have told me that already. There's my dog Indy, you might have heard in the background. Anytime a dog barks in the distance, Indy feels he has to answer. He's not in the room, otherwise I would get him on camera, because people don't actually believe he exists. He does. I think if you scroll down my Instagram page, you'll probably find a photo of him on there. Maybe when he was a bit younger, but he definitely exists. I wouldn't make up a dog. That would just be weird. But yeah, so Enter Sandman by Metallica, yes. It'd be interesting to see whether they do it again against Wolves next weekend. See whether it's going to be a more permanent thing. It was kind of when the team news was coming out, because I had this really bit of music that for me didn't fit last season. I can't even remember how it went now. But they did it every time the team news came out. And just the beat. Every time the beat for each name, it didn't really fit for me. I didn't like it. I definitely, Enter Sandman was a better fit for me. Next question. Richard Lees. Other than Tongi, who have we signed that didn't quite live up to the heights that you personally thought they would? And who exceeded your expectations, which maybe weren't so high when they signed? Right, so that's two questions in one there. Who have we signed that didn't quite live up to the heights? I think I might have said this before. I was very excited when Sergio Rebrov signed. I really thought that Spurs were going to have a, a world-class player. Just someone that I'd, when I was a kid, as a striker, I still kind of consider myself when I played my five-a-side and stuff like that. But I always looked up to strikers, and Rebrov, the whole Rebrov-Shevchenko partnership was utterly class. And I just thought, it's a no-brainer. He's going to star for Spurs, and he just didn't. There were various factors, whether he was suited and could adapt to the Premier League. Was it Glenn Hoddle didn't play him too much? I'm trying to remember who it was back then. I think it was Glenn Hoddle. I remember I was there for his first goal. I can't tell you for the life of me who it was. Might have been Everton, perhaps. I remember there, and I always remember at this silly moment when he looked into the crowd after he scored, and I felt he was looking at me. One of those silly little things when you're young. But yeah. So I should point out on Udogie, I just realised I was kind of saying that he was only going to be in Italy. Of course he will come to England. There will be a point, I think, when he'll have to come to England to, I guess, I'm trying to think if Pape Matar did. I've got a feeling Pape Matar just popped over for a few days just to kind of get a head around it all, and you'd think Udogie would do that. Whether they do the medical within that as well, because that's the thing. I don't think there's no rush. It's a deal that's going to happen. Spurs are confident it's going to happen. I guess there's no rush to kind of get. It doesn't have to be rushed through in Italy. I guess if you do want him over for a couple of days to do it here, I guess you can. I guess it depends on the Udinese season as well when you fit in. So sorry, back to that question. Massive tangent there. Who exceeded your expectations, which maybe weren't so high when they signed? Ooh, that is a good one. That is a good one. That's probably tougher than the other one. Who exceeded them? I would probably say, if I'm going to go for modern times, I actually felt that Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in his first season had more of a transformative effect in terms of being a bit of a general in that midfield than I actually anticipated. I thought it was an okay deal. I probably didn't think it was... Do you know what? Maybe the best one, actually, even more recent, it's got to be Bentancur and Kulusevski. Because although I wouldn't say my expectations weren't high for them. What I would say is, and you'll remember this, I kind of think we all felt at the time, or a lot of us did, that there was a case of, Paratici wasn't able to get players from elsewhere, and the last day of the season, last day of the window, he went back to his old club and raided a couple of players that they didn't want. And I think I remember saying at the time, obviously they may well end up to be terrific players, but in essence, on paper, it didn't look like the best advert for the work of a managing director of football. How wrong that was. They've been incredible. Both of them have been utterly superb signings. And yeah, that for me, I guess, in terms of ridiculously kind of exceeding expectations, I thought they were going to be good players. I did a lot of research into them afterwards, and they certainly, I think maybe at the time you kind of thought perhaps Bentancur was the one who had the experience. He'd won 3 Serie A titles. With Kulusevski, he was a bit maybe of an unknown, very talented. Maybe he could have gone either way, but my goodness, we're talking about exceeding expectations. I think it has to be them being superb. I mean, if you're going to go back, you can maybe look at some of the duos that signed. So Michael Dawson, Andy Reid. I think maybe we all thought at the time that Andy Reid was going to be the one, and we were a bit more excited about him. And then Michael Dawson obviously went on to be, a star in that defence. Really become how do I put it? Like one of those who's probably not quite a legend, but a real respected Spurs player. I don't even think cult figure. He's somewhere in between cult figure and legend. I don't know what that would be. You'll probably tell me in the comments. Something in the middle there. A very good player that really made a big impact at Tottenham. And we all thought maybe Andy Reid would be that person, but it didn't work for him. And you had Simon Davies and Matthew Etherington, and they both came from Peterborough, didn't they? Probably Davies ended up being the more kind of exceeded expectations. Kyle Norton and Kyle Walker, I think maybe at the time, I feel like I remember some people felt like Kyle Norton was going to be the bigger player, and obviously Kyle Walker became a very, very, very good right back. And Kyle Norton's obviously forged a very good career for himself as well, but obviously Walker is trophies galore and obviously was very good at Tottenham. So, yeah, I think I've given you a few examples there off the top of my head. Jonathan Sharp asks, seems we've all but signed Destiny Udogie, and seems like a good signing for the future, but do you feel we will also sign another centre-back to replace Rodon and Tanganga? If so, will this be a young player for Conte to work with, or a more senior pro to just get a season out of him? I think the key with Spurs, it's about opportunities. You know, I've said before, Zabani, the Ukrainian young centre-back, is a player that they really like, and whether he's someone they go back to if the window of opportunity is there for him. Obviously, it's still so kind of rocky exactly what's happening with Ukrainian football right now. I think it's Dynamo Kiev player, isn't it? I think, is it Dynamo Kiev or Shakhtar? My brain scrambled today. It's heat. Standing out in the heat all day. But he plays in Ukraine, and that's the key thing. So we don't. I think there's certainly attempts to get them playing again, but how it works, I have no idea how that works. But and also obviously financially, they've had some really tough times, of course, because of everything that's happened. So whether Zabani is one that Spurs keep an eye on, or whether they do go for a bigger name, as it were. Obviously, we know Villarreal want Giovanni Lo Celso. Do they look at Pau Torres? And do they find, a player they tried to sign last year and couldn't? Does Pau Torres come in on the left and Clement Longley maybe fits into the middle of the back three rather than the left? I think that's one of those where I wouldn't probably narrow it down. I think they'll look at another centre-back either way. Maybe even if Tanganga doesn't go. Although I'd imagine maybe he will. I think just purely to play, to get a lot of football out of him, and obviously the fair few Italian clubs interested in him. But yeah, I think it could be either. I think it could be young or old in that. And I know that's a right down the middle answer, but I think it's as simple as that. I think it's whatever deal comes up. Like I say, right now they're just purely focused on outgoings. They're trying to get those players out the door because they're struggling. There's interest there, but they're struggling to actually, I think, get anywhere near the money they'd want. And I think they're at a kind of a place now where, especially with Tongi and the manager Giovanni Lo Celso, I think they just accept whatever they can get almost. They just want them out the door, which is ridiculous when you think they're two of the most expensive players in the history of the club. But they're at a stage now where I wouldn't be stunned if both end up just going on loan. And whether there's an option to buy or not, I think they end up just both going on loan. So it's almost like, well, they've got longish deals. Let's look at that problem again next summer, kind of thing. Just put out of mind, which is, it's a really brutal way to look at players. They're two talented players. Obviously, both got different things about them and reasons why it hasn't worked at Spurs. But yeah, it can be a cold world, football. It really can on a very hot day. Don Bassett says, didn't Dyer score a rocket from outside the box in pre-season? Yeah, I think that's because I said his first goal since 2019. Obviously, I meant competitive goal. He did score a lovely goal against Team K-League, wasn't it, in the first pre-season game? Christian Petrozza says, what are the chances of getting a microphone or some sort of amplification for the reporters' questions during the press conferences? I don't understand why the technology hasn't been implemented to be able to hear the questions in the press. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I had this a lot. A lot of people ask this. Essentially, it's not my job. It's the Premier League clubs. They do it often in the Champions League. In Europe, they do. Trying to think, many of the pre-season press conferences we've had this summer, we've held microphones and done it. Like I say, Champions League, pretty much you're always given a microphone as well. But no, I haven't had. Premier League just doesn't seem to be a thing. I don't know why, and I know it infuriates some people because they want to know what the question is. What I would say, I always do a transcript. You'll always see, have a check on my Twitter feed, I always do a press conference transcript afterwards, and I will always write out the question. So if you're in doubt over what the question was, have a little look, because I always write it out for you guys and girls. Simon Loftus asks, in regards to Kulusevski cutting in on his left foot, do you think this helps the right wing-back getting space in the final third? If Kulusevski is cutting inside, there's always space for the right wing back to exploit once he is cut in. Interested to know your thoughts. Yeah, cracking. Absolutely. That's a really good analysis. Of course it does. Yeah, naturally, just by coming inside, yeah, he is. He's allowing that overlap. And we saw it to really brilliant effect for Kulusevski's goal, because he came inside, Emerson ran down, got to the touchline, pulled it back where Kulusevski was, bang, goal. Yep, absolutely spot on analysis there. Quite right. Chad Mercer asked, do you think, apologies, I've picked the most busy time for people to go by, and neighbours parking up outside their houses. Or there was some commotion outside in the street last night. I had very little sleep last night anyway, because I don't know if I'd said this in the last video, it was a very early start. It was a 9:45 graduation ceremony in Nottingham. So we had to leave very, very early because my daughter had to pick up her gown as well on the day. So I had to leave. I had to get up at 4 and leave at something like 5. And yeah, there was all commotion out in the streets. Something was happening in one of the houses down the road. Ambulances, police cars. It makes it sound like I live in a really dodgy area. I don't. I think just something was going on in the night. Yeah, it's not really, I guess, for me to say. But it kept me awake. I didn't get much sleep, which is probably why I've got big old bags under my eyes and look absolutely shattered. If that develops, I will bring you breaking news. But back to the football. Chad Mercer asked, do you think the January transfer window will see Spurs swoop in for deals that couldn't be done in the summer, or will it depend on our progress up till then? I think this January transfer window is going to be very different to previous ones, purely because of the World Cup. I think the World Cup, there will be injuries, there will be tired players. I think clubs will try to get as much done as they can, but there seems to have been a general acknowledgement, I think, that from certainly a lot of clubs, that there may be more business done in January than in recent years. I think Spurs will want to be stable. They will want to not really have to go into January unless there's been a really bad injury in the World Cup. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they look to bring in someone in that window. Again, it depends on where Spurs are at. It depends on who's coming through. So who's playing lots of minutes. Depends what competitions they're still in. But ultimately, I think the chances of Spurs signing a January window are far more than any other season. I know often when there's a new signing, a new manager, like Mourinho's first January, there were a couple of signings. Conte's first one, there was a couple of signings. But I just think as normal January windows go, this is probably the most abnormal. And I think that's why something will happen. Sorry, it's a really confusing sounding answer, but hopefully you know what I mean. Another homegrown players question. We've answered that. Dexter Sykes with a random one. Would you rather add 3 hours to every day or an extra day in the week? Probably have an extra day, I reckon. Lee says, what's the truth in the Zaniolo story? Zaniolo's an interesting one. He certainly is a player that Spurs have looked at for years, honestly. They've looked at him for years. Obviously, he's like the golden boy of Italian football. He has had horrendous injuries that kind of essentially lost about 2 years worth of football. Got back and played a decent season in terms of certainly got lots of minutes under his belt. Looked a bit more like his old self. But honestly, every time I bring up Zaniolo or Maddison with anyone inside Spurs, it's always played down and it's all about outgoings at the moment. So make of that what you will. Obviously, the Italian press are running lots with the Zaniolo stuff. I think I might have said this before, but I would be a little bit concerned almost if Roma were to let him go. Why that would be. Because, you know, Roma, have a very high opinion of him, and I just worry if they'll let him go. Is it because they're worried about injury? Is it because they're worried that he's not going to get any more than his peak? That maybe he's already had his peak. I mean, yeah, it's one of those strange ones. And he's been playing a lot in pre-season, playing a lot of football. Obviously playing against Spurs, and you'd imagine that the season will begin with him playing in one of those attacking slots as well. So I don't really know what good it does Mourinho unless there's someone else lined up immediately to come in. And I think personally, if you've got a player with that kind of injury history, you're probably looking more at a loan than a transfer, because it's almost like a try before you buy type thing. And I don't see how that appeals to Roma in any way, because he could go on to be a very big, important player for them this season. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on. But I don't know. I don't know. There doesn't seem, whenever I mention his name, it does seem to be kind of shut down quite quickly. Like I say, mostly because they're talking about outgoings, but I wouldn't rule it out entirely. Certainly, like I say, because they've always been interested in him. He's been on their list forever. But yeah, it's a strange one. It is a strange one, Zaniolo. Certainly doesn't seem to be as close at this moment. And I just wonder, because I can't see how Roma would let him go. It's a weird one. JR asks, do you think Conte will ever utilise a back four this season? And if so, what situations would that system be employed? Would he prefer to stick with a wing-back system no matter what, like Inter? I think he sticks with it. I do. I think there'll be certain game situations when he'll kind of switch. He'll have to. Obviously, naturally, if you're going to, in a game, put someone like Lucas Moura into the wing-back position because maybe you're trailing or you just want another goal or something, automatic, that kind of turns it into a four in a way in certain situations, but I don't think he'll come away from that, because I think he also sees it as a system that suits Spurs quite nicely, and I think he's right. I think it does, the back three. So yeah. Mark says, what's your favourite three Spurs kits and your least favourite? Favourite three? I don't know if I've got three. Certainly was it Hummel? With the white, I always associate Glenn Hoddle and Chris Waddle with it, with the kind of white, but with a bit up there, it's kind of got the diagonal little stripes just there. You'll know what I mean. I kind of associate it with that kind of mid to late 80s look. I liked one of the first Adidas ones. That was quite a nice one, a white one with maybe a V-neck collar. That was a nice one. And I loved the light blue retro one they did, was it 2 seasons ago? That was a thing of beauty. It really was lovely. In terms of one that I haven't liked, there was some of the was it Pony or Kappa? Was it Pony or Kappa? There was some of those I was a little bit like, The Nike ones, I'm still waiting for one to really wow me. Although saying that blue one, retro one was Nike, wasn't it? So that was very cool. I'm still waiting for kind of one of the ones to really wow me, of the home and away ones. This year's away one is a bit like a wetsuit. The home one's okay. It's nothing amazing, but it's okay. So yeah, I'd probably say there's some Pony and Kappa ones that are not particularly great, and some of the more recent ones probably as well. What else we got here? Astor Matthew asks, how good are you with a camera? Is that something that's improved due to your profession? I've been alright. You've always been quite decent with taking photos, I think. And the beauty of having phones now that got such a good quality cameras on them means that there's been some instances like, especially with the zoom as well. So when we had in Korea, when Conte was pushing the players hard and they were knackered and falling all over the place, and we had Kane throwing up, for some reason the photographers there weren't taking photos of that. And I was up in the stand, so I thought, let's take a photo. So I just took some photos, and they ended up going viral because no one else was using them all across the internet. I think they ended up using them on Sky Sports, various ESPN, stuff like that were using. I think even some of the other papers nicked them as well. So yeah, I'm okay with photography. It's not bad. It's one of those things where I kind of, you half wonder, could you be a photojournalist? And I'm not trained as a photographer. I must state that from the off. I'm very much saying that amateur-wise, I'm half decent. But yeah, it's definitely it's something I quite enjoy doing. I'll be honest. I quite like kind of framing stuff and capturing the light and all that sort of stuff. It can be quite fun. Oh, Michael says, was it just me or did the sync go without us speaking? It did. It did in my last video for some unknown reason. It's never done it before in one of these videos. About the 48-minute mark in the last video, something's happened. It's in the original video. It's not YouTube's end. For YouTube, somebody sometimes does some strange things with my stuff. But on this occasion, it actually wasn't. It was in the original video, about 48 minutes. It just must have jumped ever so slightly. So this split second out. So as I said on Twitter to people, if you hadn't already, just turn away. If you want to still listen to it, listen to my voice, but don't look at me like that. It's all really weird. It's just slightly out of sync. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. I really do apologise if it does. If it does, I'm going to have to really kind of work out why it's happened again, and it wasn't just a kind of a glitch in the last one. What else we got here? Funny enough, Malcolm Redbourne asked, why didn't Spurs look at a Pau Torres-Lo Celso swap? It seems an obvious move. It does seem obvious. I agree. I don't know why. Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure. Look, we know Villarreal. It sounds like they've asked about Tanguy as well on Dembele. There's various clubs right now looking. I think I said this in the last video. We're now at that stage where seasons are beginning. People are seeing more what their squad needs, where the holes are, where there's injuries, where they really need something to appease the fans or the manager. And I think more people are coming into play almost. So you'll see more players kind of inquired about, and then it's where it goes. And then sometimes those talks may revolve around players coming the opposite direction because certain clubs maybe don't have much money. And this is the interesting when we talk about Villarreal and talk about Lo Celso and Dembele. Villarreal don't spend big money. They just don't. They're not really big fee clubs. They're quite financially astute, and they'll often sign players for lower value and then make the money out of them. So, yeah, whether they're a club that might look to use player trading to get players, we'll see. What else we got here? Stephen asked, I saw something about odd birthday numbering in South Korea, so Sonny might not be as old as we think he is. Only a year or so, it said, when you were born, when they count it as you being. Do you know anything about this, or have I been sold a wrong un by the interwebs? I have heard about this in South Korea. There is a different way. I think there's another Asian country that does that as well, where they do your birthday in a slightly different way. I don't think that really works with us because we know when his birthday is. So I don't think we can work it out ourselves, unless I'm missing a trick there. As we know his birthday, I don't think that can be altered. Yeah. Stu Lin asks, fascinated by the pre-season training, did Lloris and the keepers have to do the extended pitch runs too? I don't think they did. I'm trying to rack my brains. I don't think I remember seeing any of them doing the pitch long runs. I think they did their own thing. I think they certainly have to be very fit, but not to that level of fitness. I don't remember them being involved, and I apologise to them if they were and I've forgotten about them, but I don't remember them being in there. Also, do you think we're short of a central attacking midfielder, or do you think in Conte's head that Kane can play that role while Richarlison can then be the striker? I think they'll keep an eye out for attacking midfielders. It's a funny one. I think I said this before as well. Conte's system, the number 10s are different. They're not the normal kind of number 10s. They're not your bog standard, sit in the middle kind of number 10s. They're number 10s that can also go out wide. So they've got to be quite a specific kind of attacking midfielder. Kane can certainly play that role. Kulusevski told me that that's his favourite role, so he can play there as well. We've seen Lucas play as a central attacking midfielder as well, like a number 10 type. Yeah, and I'd imagine Richarlison can play there as well, but like you say, can also play up front with Kane coming back. I'd say there's a lot of people that can play in that role. I personally would like to still see someone that just give that little bit of an option who can. Because if you're going to lose, clearly Tanguy and Dembele and Lo Celso are not anything to do with the plans for next season. But I do think you're missing out on that slightly more adventurous attacking central midfielder. And I'm talking a deeper central midfielder that's a bit more attacking. I'd like to see him get one of those who can play further up if needed as well. Erica Green asks, how much does not having a free kick specialist hurt us? Do you see Spurs signing one before the deadline? I think I've answered this one before in that I don't think you go out and specifically sign a player because he's a great free kick taker. I think that has to be an added bonus. You know, I know they've looked at Ward-Prowse in the past and they were close to it. They could have got him for a very good deal about 3 years back, but they dillied and dallied and didn't go for him. And he ended up, he's now like a £50 million player or something, maybe more. And with a player like that, you know, he's a good player as well, but he also happens to be a terrific free kick taker. And I think that's the way you look at it. I don't think you look at it like buying a kicker in the NFL kind of thing. I don't think you really look at it like that. Asif asks, do you think Perisic will get playtime in game week 2? I'm guessing with Sessegnon scoring in game 1, his spot should be more secured than before. He also made some really strong runs, which Perisic is well known for throughout his career. Apologies if you can hear the dog in the background. That is, again, window roulette on a hot day. You're going to get that. The way that question is worded, that sounds very FPL type. I get a lot of FPL people on Twitter asking about various things about game weeks and who might play and stuff like that. I think Conte's got a decision to make this weekend. Either he sticks with Sessegnon, who really impressed and I think personally deserves to play again, and I think confidence-wise he will go flying into that game. But there is the other element to it of Perisic is a guy who is very experienced in these big games. He is very much got that nous of playing against the top teams. My only worry would be maybe throwing him in when he's not fully 100% sharp and fit into a game like that against a Chelsea. I'd put maybe playing him against another kind of side myself as his first start. But yeah, it's down to Conte. I'd imagine Cess, unless he has some kind of reaction after the game, you'd imagine he'll start again against Chelsea. Chris Barker asks, why am I not scared of any team in the Premier League? I think that's because Conte doesn't want you to be. I think Spurs are a different beast this season. Julian Maynard asks, what are the 4 outcasts doing? Are they training with the team or other squads? I don't think they're training with the team. I'm sure they're doing their own thing purely because that's kind of the point in, I guess, them being away from the... I cannot guarantee that 100%, and I'm trying to think if I've seen them in any photos or videos with training with the squad. I don't think I have. But I'm pretty sure they would be doing their own thing. Because, yeah, they're not in the plans. And it's not saying that they're bad eggs or anything like that. I think it's more a case of if there are some players who aren't buying into the idea, the philosophy, they're heading off, you don't really want that in the group because just subconsciously there's a different hunger, there's a different level of, I guess, giving your all. You know, these other players will absolutely be putting themselves on the line right now for Conte and Tottenham, whereas the players who are expected to leave, they don't need to have that same motivation, and why should they? You know, why should they put their bodies on the line when they're not wanted, I guess, as well. So yeah, I'd say I'm 90% sure they're doing their own thing. I'll double check that and get back to you. Another homegrown quota question, which I asked at the start. Another homegrown one, 2 in a row. The Rai asks, Conte made it very clear in the pre-match press conference ahead of Saints about he hated being lied to. Do we have any indications what he's been told are our future intentions? Do you think that was any warning to us or just an answer of his previous history? I think it's a bit of both. I think he's getting everything he wants right now. I think Spurs have been very open and honest with him. He was told to begin with there wasn't really lots of money for that January window. And then for the summer, obviously, they made that money available. I think it's a little warning, as if to say, don't lie to me, keep honest with me, give me what I want, and I'll be happy. But I also think there is clearly other clubs he was talking about where I think the expression was, don't tell me a good lie or something, tell me the bad truth or something like that. And I think that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's probably, I'm sure you can work out which clubs he's probably talking about there because he's obviously had a couple of experiences that have ended quite quickly, or quicker than maybe he or the clubs expected. Todd McKinney asks, question for the Q&A, why is it assumed that Brian Hill can't play Premier League football but Lucas can? They seem the same size or build, just curious for your thoughts. Size-wise, height, I'd agree with you. I'd say in terms of build, Lucas is very strong, kind of lower body strength. Having sat opposite him a fair few times and kind of interviewing him, he's a muscly lad in his legs, let's put it that way. He's got that strength on the ball and you don't see him knocked off it too much. Whereas Brian Hill is a young lad and I think he still has to build that into his game. And I think I don't see him as a Premier League write-off at all. I really do think that he could adapt. And I think he does need to bulk up. But I do think he's a very talented young man who could play very well in the Premier League. I just don't know whether they're going to give him the chance. That's my only fear. Be interested to see what happens in the next few weeks. Because obviously the fact that he was on that bench proves that, you know, he's not being cast aside at all. But he was on that bench. But you'd imagine he'll go elsewhere. I'm intrigued to see if there's an offer or two comes in from Spain. I know some teams in France like him, but I'd imagine there might be an offer or two from Spain coming in the next week or so, within the next week. Sam Willis says, can we talk about how good Bentancur is? Granted, Kulusevski is getting plaudits, and rightly so, with his goals and assists, but Bentancur has completely transformed our midfield. He's so calm and relaxed on the ball, doesn't ever look like he's panicking, and he's taken Højbjerg's game to another level. One of the best pieces of businesses we've done in a long while. I think he's class. He's absolutely class. He'll have the odd moment when he's maybe slightly overconfident, but on the whole, his composure has been a huge plus to that midfield, and I think he does. I think you're right. I think he calms down Højbjerg slightly. Højbjerg will still have these games when his passing's a little bit off, but I do like Højbjerg. I think he gets a lot of unfair stick. Even the game the other day against Southampton, I think a lot of what he did off the ball went unnoticed. I thought he was really worked hard in that middle of the pitch. And Bentancur is superb. He really is. And I think he's only going to get better, which is kind of what really excites me about Basuma and Skippy to come in as well. Those are 4 players that offer a lot. They are, all 4 of them, I think, can be absolute top-notch Premier League players, and that's very exciting. It really is. There's more to about Villarreal. We've kind of spoken about them. Perky13 asks, for the European away trips, do you get an opportunity to explore the various cities we're in at all, or is it just a case of get in, do the pre-season game, and head out again? It's very busy. It's very busy. I'd say we get the kind of the general the way it works is I will arrive on the day of the press conference, and then often we'll get an open training session as well. So literally we'll fly in, head to the stadium pretty sharpish after that. We'll do the press conference, write all of that, watch the open training as well. We'll write up stuff on that. So the first night I will get a meal in wherever we are, quite late at night. Normally, I don't know, can be gone 10, 11 at night, which was very difficult in Korea because the Korean people seem to eat a little bit earlier. So it was difficult to actually find places open late at night when we'd done all our work. Then I'd say match day is the day I might get a little bit of time in the morning to have a little look round, because obviously as the understanding with work that I will be working very late because the match is often an hour or two later their time, so it may start at 9 o'clock, or maybe occasionally even later. I think we had one that was a 9:55 kickoff. It was over 9:55, 9:45 would probably make more sense. So you're going to get out there late. So sometimes on the morning of the match, I get to have a little look round, and then the day after the match, there's a write-off because I am writing about everything that happened. So yeah. Often just that little period of maybe 2 to 3 hours on the morning to early afternoon of a match day. That's when I get to have a little look round and try and see the places. So yeah, it's as I keep telling my wife, it's not a holiday. Despite what she keeps thinking, it's not a holiday. What else we got here? Steve Sharp asked, John Thrower joined Tottenham as fitness coach from Middlesbrough last season. Is he working with the first team? He is. I've seen him out and about working with the team. He was out in Korea as well. Saw him there and in Israel, I think, as well. Yes, he's definitely doing first team work. Seems to be quite popular. I think other than saying hello to him as he walked by once, I haven't really spoken to him, but I have. He seems to be very well liked. Lots of people talking to him. And the players, I think you'll notice that in some of the videos I've seen, you see the players get on quite well with him as well. So yes, he is working with them. Let's have a look. Innate Motivation asks, lots of talk about expectations, with most people predicting third and maybe a domestic cup. But shouldn't we follow Conte's lead and dream of winning the title or Champions League? This is becoming a very strong squad. I think we should always dream. We should be dreamers, as Conte said, as well as realists. Yeah, and my prediction is maybe pushing for that third and taking that this season, and hopefully a domestic cup. You can go for the title of Champions League, of course. Champions League is more of a potluck thing to it. Premier League, it will be about huge consistency, and it will be about taking on 2 teams that have only strengthened and got stronger. In Liverpool and City, they're ridiculous, quite frankly. It makes it very, very difficult. And I think that's where Conte is a realist. I think he just thinks, look, we can only hope that one of them falters. The likelihood of both faltering is quite a big arse. So that's the only issue I'd see with that. Rayhan Ferezha asks, Maybe a bit irrelevant, but I always wonder, who's the one that always shouts, away, get out, keeper? In my mind, it's probably either Lloris or Dyer, but that person is for sure one of the leaders at the back. You might have heard me say this way back during the pandemic, because we had no crowds. We really got to hear that a lot better. It was Lloris a lot. Lloris is a big organising voice in that back line. I think people kind of see him as this quiet captain type, but he's actually not, and you can really could hear him when the crowd isn't there. Look, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, when it's noisy, it is ridiculously noisy. You can't hear what the players are shouting to each other. It almost forms a bubble around it. But he certainly, Dyer as an organiser, you can hear him saying stuff. Davies talks to people during the game quite a lot as well. Less so like that kind of leader organisational stuff. But yeah, Lloris and Dyer, you said the names. They're the ones really. Højbjerg's noisy. He's always talking. But mostly, yeah, it's coming from the back there. Who else we got? This is random. Luis Rayado, 88. Bit of an odd question, but if you pick Spurs players to play Star Wars characters, who would play who? That's a tough one, isn't it? I think Harry Kane's probably got to be Han Solo. Luke Skywalker. It's a tough one because you kind of want them as the... you kind of want them as a bit of a duo, don't you? So would that be Han and Chewie? Would that be Han and Luke? I think you'd probably have to go for Han and Luke. I mean, who's slightly younger? I guess Kane's younger, so maybe you'd have to go for Sonny being Han Solo and Kane being Luke Skywalker. Don't know. That's a rabbit hole I could go down to and really kind of get too deep into it, so I won't. We'll just go with those two right now. And I guess Conte would have to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, wouldn't he? Original, rather than Ewan McGregor. Sir Alec Guinness one, rather than the Ewan McGregor one. What else we got here? Brad Craven says, do you think Reguilon might be on the outer with players? I've noticed things all through his time with us, but last season I noticed a couple of bigger things. I can't remember which game, but Sonny scored a goal and got up with this fiery look on him. The first person to after goal was Reguilon. Sonny sort of looked like he ignored him. That stuck out to me. The other thing was the walk around with the families in the last home game. There were shots of Reguilon all on his own walking around. It seemed a bit like people were avoiding him. I'll be honest, I didn't see either of those, so I can't really comment on that thing. He's always been quite a popular player, Reguilon. Always a bit of a joker in the pack. I haven't really seen anything different to that. But like I say, I don't even know if he's training with the first team anyway at the moment. It may well be, you know, they're in the canteen and stuff like that together. But I think he's on his way out anyway. And I think he's probably one of those players that will maybe slightly easier to move on anyway. Yeah, Bradley asks, could you do a projected starting 11 for mid-season? Like, who do you see working their way into the first choice 11 as the season goes on? Bradley, there is no first choice 11 anymore. That's the Conte way. There is a combinations, there is rotations, there's a bit of everything. So, yeah, there is no set starting 11. So I cannot do that because I would be betraying everything that I've been trying to say about the Conte way and the no dipping in quality of whoever plays. That one I've answered. Indra Advani asked, what was your daughter's discipline at her graduation? She's going to be an accountant. She's not following my father, not in my footsteps. She is going to follow in, she is following in her grandfather's footsteps. My dad was an accountant. Like I said, math magicians. And my youngest daughter is going into costume design. She's about to head off to uni. She's going to do costume design. She's going to follow my passion and her passion for movies and TV, and hopefully one day I will be she can talk to me in an Oscar speech. That would be wonderful. Thank my parents, one of those, and you'll see me blubbing away in the audience. So yeah. Sven524 says, how about Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, the pre-kickoff song that would get the crowd going? Yes, I do know that one. That would certainly get people going. It was interesting. There was quite a lot of love for the Metallica song Enter Sandman. I could see that on Twitter and in the comments. Prabhabhambra 13. Sorry if I've absolutely murdered the pronunciation there. Do you know Spurs have an AI team? I'm currently doing a PhD in AI, and I've had the good fortune of being able to talk to some of the AI scientists at City and Liverpool. However, I've not heard anything about Spurs using data in this way. Doing AI analytics at Spurs would be my dream job. Can you let Levy know that I'm looking for a job? I don't have a hotline to Levy, I'm afraid. So, sorry, someone's shouting outside. Someone's getting very angry at a car. It wasn't me. That would be random, wouldn't it, if I just suddenly left the video to go and shout out the window at passing cars. I'm trying to do a video here, don't you know? It's my own fault. Opening windows because I'm so hot, but I haven't sweat yet. Whereas in the last video, I was very close to being a sweaty man. I don't know. I'll be honest. There's no point me waffling around an answer. I don't know about the AI team stuff. I can certainly ask, but what I would say to you is look at the club's kind of website and their general form and fire off an email yourself, and especially if it's something that you want to get into work-wise with them and find out. I'll put it in my list of things I need to kind of chase them this week. I'm back at work tomorrow. Looking for Discovery asks, I sent you a tweet yesterday asking you to name the person in the background staff who looks like Brad Fried on my screen grab. You're probably talking about Alan Dixon, who is the team manager. It's technically his title. Used to be a player liaison, now he's team manager. Very publicity shy guy. He's been there a long time. Bit of a fixer in a way for the players. Players love him. Think Ray Donovan, but without the seedy undertones and dodgy, dubious motives. And that's him, you know, doing things in the right way. Yeah, he's a big guy, former army man. Have a little look. I wrote a piece. Google Alan Dixon and Alistair Gold. I guess I know that sounds ridiculous. Anyone googling my name, but I think if you do that, you'll see a piece I wrote on him that's got bits of info on him. He's an interesting character. He is. Everyone asks me that. I always say his name, and then I still get people asking about him, which is good. I like people being interested in stuff. Engine Spurs asks a quick question about Sarr. You've mentioned his lack of English a couple of times. Are you hearing from the club that they're disappointed he hasn't learned enough, or is that solely your opinion? I think it's one of those where I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine. I think it's maybe more me just being surprised because he's had a year to prepare and his English isn't great. But like I said, there can be so many reasons behind that. There could be that Spurs told him he was unlikely to come back to Spurs and was more likely to go on a second loan, so he thought it wasn't a point to it. But yeah, if it was me, I probably would. But I'm being massively hypocritical because I didn't push languages when I was a kid, which I really should have, because I was okay as well at school, but I didn't really push it past GCSE level. And it's only recently, like I said in the last video, that my wife's got me into doing Duolingo, getting some Italian in me. So I'd be massively hypocritical. I'm absolutely not criticising him. I'm just surprised that he didn't, because I think naturally anywhere you go, if I move abroad, and I'd love to move abroad at some point in the future, I definitely would try to learn the language just purely to help the adaptation process. But no, I haven't heard the club are disappointed. But no, it was, it was certainly told to me early on because I was looking to get interviews and stuff that they hadn't. Maybe like me, there was a little bit of surprise, but I wouldn't go as far to say anyone's disappointed. Fat Rob 1711 says, my wife asks, hello Ali, how do you enjoy being the third person in our marriage? I apologise for that. If anyone is their partners are having to suffer me being on the screen or whatever, I apologise. I do. Daniel Levitt says, is our left wing back called Cess? That is, of course, Ryan Sessegnon. It's his nickname. It's what the players call him. It's what Conte calls him. I think it's something he's always been called through his career. Stu Mack asks, how's Ryan Mason been progressing under Conte? Do you reckon that he has the potential to be a future Spurs manager? Does he need to move away from Spurs to manage a team of his own soon to put all that he has learned to use? From everything I understand, he's doing very well. Seems to have fitted in very nicely to Conte's staff. You'll probably notice that every time there's a goal, Conte runs very quickly in his direction. He involves him and all of his Italian staff. He's very much makes Ryan. I'd be intrigued to know. I might ask him if I see him around somewhere. Maybe he's doing the Duolingo. Maybe he's doing a bit of Italian to help him. Obviously they all speak English, but maybe he's doing a delivery van there. That's the noisiest thus far, I think. yeah, no, everything I understand he's doing well. I think he's quite young. I think there's definitely an ambition in him to be a manager. I think we saw that when he came in and did the Spurs caretaker shift. He is only... he's 29 when he was doing that. So what is he, 30 still now? I don't know if he's turned 31 or not. He's still very young. So I'd say, if I were him, soak up the Conte knowledge, honestly. I'd use that as much as possible. And then maybe in 2-3 years' time, maybe kind of get into management. Because I think he's going to be a really good manager. He got some unfair criticism, I felt, during that time he was caretaker manager. Whereas everything I understood about his training, people loved his training. And actually, on Conte's first day, he kind of observed Mason taking the team in training. And it was kind of after that he asked him to come on board. So he clearly was impressed as well by what he saw. And yeah, there's a lot of people in that club that think he is going to be a future manager. And they hope, obviously, a future Spurs manager. So, yeah, keep an eye on Ryan Mason. Definitely. What else we got? Some good ones here. MA89 asked, with your travel hat on, any preferred locations for Champions League away games? Like someone new. Always like someone new. If I've got to go back, I do. There's some cities I adore that I've had some really lovely holidays in recent years. I'd love Barcelona. I've loved Lisbon. So obviously there's the chance, isn't there, of both? Yeah, I think they're both in the competition. Trying to think where we haven't been. This is the thing about, obviously in the Conference League and Europa League, you got to maybe go to some slightly different, not your normal destination places. Whereas the Champions League, maybe it's a little bit more obvious. There's normally one slight curveball. So yeah, somewhere I've not been before would be very cool. I'd say I'd like to go somewhere warm in one of the later dates. That would be awesome. Although Christmas markets in Germany are always pretty cool. I managed to do sneak in a couple of those. I just love travelling. I'll be honest. Honestly, you've heard me say this before. As a kid, I always wanted to be Clark Kent, Superman, or Indiana Jones. So I ended up doing the reporter thing. I know I'm not Clark Kent or Superman. But I also definitely have the globe-trotting, not archaeologist side, but the globe-trotting side. I love to see the world. So I'm happy with anywhere, I'll be honest with you. What else we got? So do another couple before I head off. Jamie Scowen asks, if Adama Traore was to be signed for Spurs, would he meet the homegrown rule as he joined Aston Villa at age 19? My guess is he doesn't. No, I don't think he does. I'm pretty sure we looked that up and he doesn't. I think 19 would be too old anyway. Aaron Edmonton, movie character question. Who would win in a fight, Han Solo or Indiana Jones? Oh, that'd be a tough one, wouldn't it? They're both survivors. They've both been in scrapes, I'd imagine. Honestly, I'd call it a draw. Mainly because they're two of my favourite characters in movie history. What else we got? T-Berg81 asks, how much is Daniel Levy involved in the outgoings with players like Undemele and Lo Celso? They were expensive players on relatively high wages. I would think Daniel still have a large part in how we deal with them, no matter how much Conte wants them out. I definitely think he's taken a bit more of a backseat with Paratici's arrival. I think Paratici has been given a lot more as the job would expect. You know, he is a proper board level guy in charge of transfers, really. So I definitely think Daniel Levy has had less input, but at the end of the day, he is also the guy that pushes the final button, makes the green light up. So at the end of the day, he will always have a say. So I don't know. I think on Undemele and Lo Celso, it's about getting interest and getting serious offers as well. I think it's key to anything. Indiana Stones, ironic. If you could go back to any point in time throughout history, where would you go and why? I'd love to go and see ancient Egypt. When I was a kid, I used to have a massive thing about ancient Egypt, so I would love to go back and see what that looks like. Probably not stay there, because I think it'd be quite a difficult time to live in, but just pop there, maybe like for the day, a bit like Stargate kind of style thing. Although technically I don't think that was ancient Egypt, I think it was a different land, or planet, wasn't it? Paul Sherwood says, how good would that to be? Ask Conte a question in Italian. That would be awesome. Maybe one day. One Yellow Eric asks, While I know Milesy is the club journo, would you consider at some time in the future you'd like to do his job? I think you'd be really great at it and be brought as an ambassador for the club because of the passion and commitment to the club and us fans. Thanks, Eric. Milesy is brilliant. Milesy is one of the nicest men I've ever met in football. Honestly, Paul Miles, he is such a legend. I definitely couldn't do his job. He's brilliant at it. He is brilliant at it. Like I say, he's got a lovely family and he is the nicest guy. I could sit and talk to Milesy for forever. He's terrific. And in terms of me, I think it's difficult because we kind of went into, I think Milesy started out obviously in kind of journalism as well. I think newspaper journalism, and obviously went to do the club route, whereas I've obviously continued to do the journalism route away from being part of a club. I think I'd find it difficult. It's purely on a personal level because I like to obviously be able to say both sides of things and everything. And obviously if you're working for the club, you're not going to be able to put out stuff which is, you know, maybe slightly critical and things like that. And I don't know if I could do that. I'd find that quite difficult, I think. I like to be able to kind of, I guess, analyse and be able to see all sides of things. Like last summer, let's be honest, one of the most farcical summers Spurs have had in a long, long time. And I think while you saw me get very exasperated at times, it was interesting to report on. It was knackering, but it was interesting to report on. And obviously, if you're part of a club, you're not doing that side of the stuff. So, yeah, I don't know about that. What else we got here? Tumisim, sorry if I'm killing pronunciation, Guma. What are the moral, ethical aspects of transfer reporting? Do journalists get tipped off by people breaking confidence? Says, are we all complicit in something not entirely above board? Thanks for sorry. I try not to read out praise stuff because it makes me sound like I've got a huge head stuff. That's why sometimes you hear me going at the end. Thank you very much when people say nice things, but I don't want to be the guy that says nice things about myself. There's a bit of everything involved in it. Of course, there's people giving out bits of information. Often when people give out information, there's a benefit to them. There's a benefit to something. So an agent may, or someone connected with a player may tip me off about something because I guess maybe it raises interest or it gets fans excited and helps push a deal through a bit quicker. I guess there's that side. Breaking confidence, I suppose there must be. I know there's times that the club have been a bit annoyed when stuff's come out that I've put out there because they didn't want it to be out there. But like I say, that's kind of going back to the last question, isn't it? It's about being able to do what I want to do and not have any, I guess, limitations on what I can do. Not saying that anyone in the Spurs could do my job fantastically well. It's just a different job that they have to do when you're inside a club, and it's the same with anyone working in a club. Chad Plainview asks, any news on Danny Rose? Is he joining academy coaching stuff? As far as I was told, I know he was involved in that under-21s match, wasn't he? I was told at the time that was purely because of fitness reasons. At that point, he wasn't looking to come back into the coaching staff. Obviously, we know Jermaine Defoe's going to be part of that. And Yaya Toure, of course, is going to be continuing his work with Academy. But I haven't heard about Danny Rose at this point. But we'll see. I don't actually know if he's rocked up anywhere yet, has he? Obviously, as a free agent, maybe he's got a little bit more latitude in what he does. But I'd imagine he'd want to continue playing, especially if he's trying to keep his fitness up. Well, I saw, wasn't it, Tom Hoddleston went to Man United. That was an interesting one. What else we got here? I'll try and do two more before I head off. Yeah, lots of people telling me about Enter Sandman saying why not use AJ Tracy? He's a Tottenham native. Again, another very nice man about AJ out in Korea. Lovely guy. Had a good chat with him for quite a while. And yeah, he's got a couple of tunes. I mean, I'm sure he would love to write something to be Spurs kind of walkout music. It used to always be, it was at half time, they'd always play one of his tracks as well. So yeah, I'm all for that. Have you seen Prey yet? Great film. I really want to see Prey. Hero Zeros asked that. Sorry, Santosh Ganwarden asked that about the AJ Tracy one. Hero Zeros ask about, have you seen Prey yet? I haven't. I do want to see it. I do want to see it. I do like watching the Predator films. I love the original. I did actually quite like the second one. And then obviously we've had some varying levels of quality in the later ones. But everything I'm hearing about Prey sounds fantastic. So yes, I do want to watch that. Shaky asks, is there an audio version of these? I'd love to be able to listen to these at the gym. As I always say, whenever people ask this, I do a podcast with Guesty, Rob Guest, called Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. Which thankfully we've got a really big audience for as well. So I wouldn't put these videos out as audio because it would kind of, I guess it would be a rival, it would be a competitor for our own podcast, which does us no favours whatsoever. So yeah, we have good fun on that. Please, if anyone wants a podcast to listen to, go and have a listen. It's a bit different to this. Some of the things I say will obviously cross over. There'll be some things I say that are similar, but ultimately we have a good fun relationship, Guesty and I. We have a good bit of banter about it. He's an Everton fan, so he sees it. I'd like to think I'm objective, but he comes in at it from an even more different viewpoint. And yeah, we have a good bit of fun on there. We've got some quite interesting stuff coming up in the weeks ahead as well. So yeah, I do. Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, if you want to look up on your various podcast platforms. What else we got here? How long till you drop a 2-hour video? We're ready. Oh, if it mucked about with the audio like it did in the last one, I'm hoping that doesn't become a regular thing. Serpy Derpy asked, do you still watch or follow Bishop Stortford FC at all? So, for people that aren't aware, before I did Premier League football, I kind of cut my teeth, as it were, in non-league football and League 2. I used to cover a lot of local clubs, and one of them was Bishop Stortford. And what I tried to do, everything you see me do covering Tottenham now, I kind of tried to bring that Premier League style of coverage to whatever team I covered. So I went in there and would get online loads of manager stuff, pretty much a transcript actually of those, and spoke to loads of players after matches. There were instantly loads of stuff on there which maybe our local newspaper days had been a bit different, and you'd have to wait for the weekly paper to put it out. And I tried to change that a bit, which ultimately maybe played a part in me doing Tottenham and becoming a Tottenham one. But Bishop Stortford was one of my teams. I've got a very soft spot for Bishop Stortford. Going through a little bit of a tough time compared to when I was covering them. They were a National South team. They've dropped down a little bit at the moment. I don't still get the chance to watch them or follow them often because I'm either A, at a Spurs game, or B, it will be my day off and the family. I've got to spend some time with them, so no. But I keep a little eye on them. Of course I do. Ryan Lunn asked, and I don't know, I've seen this one come up, I don't know the answers, so I hope some other people would help him with this. Ryan Lunn asked, is there a Tottenham supporters Discord chat or forum anywhere you know of? I'm a Spurs fan from Blackpool and want to get to more games. It would be great if I could travel down with any other fans up my way. So yeah, if you're from around the Blackpool area and you want to help out Ryan and go to games as a group, please do look out for him in the comments. He's in the comment section under the last video. Hopefully he'll comment under this one as well, and please do reply to him and help him out. I think maybe we'll finish there. Finish there with trying to help someone. Actually, one last one. And Ansis Terade asks, how do you have a normal life, Ali? I try to. Last couple of days I have. I had my birthday. I had a very nice day on Tuesday. And today, obviously, has been, admittedly, yes, I'm doing a video now. Although, who knows? Sometimes these take so long to process. This might not go out to the middle of the night. It is about 7 o'clock-ish that I'm recording this. So, hopefully nothing breaks afterwards. Because of the time it now takes. Funny enough, AJ Tracy has just sneak previewed something. I was about to say, because of how long these videos are now taking to upload, it's probably because of the length of time I waffle for. I'm always wary of something that just happens as it's uploading and I don't get to talk about it. So I have my laptop now sitting right there. The Spurs have just retweeted something that AJ Tracy is saying about Spurs, a sneak peek of something tomorrow. So there you go. That tied in really nicely with what I said about AJ Tracy and maybe doing something Spurs related. And that was absolutely not meant whatsoever. I had no idea he's doing something. So there you go. But in terms of a normal life, I just about do it. I have to ask my wife. I think I just about do it. I am a little bit of a workaholic. Of course I am. When you're covering a team like Tottenham Hotspur, you have to be. And obviously these videos are doing my spare time as well. So, you know, I'm not going to lie, they're not, you know, they're not taking up my entire day. Of course they're not. I just sit here for an hour or so, have a chat, and then I hit upload and put it on YouTube and just hope it gets up there on the same day. There was one day it went up the next morning, which was terrible. It was rubbish. But on the whole, yeah, just about getting a normal life. I do. I like to play my football. Play football often Thursday nights, sometimes Tuesday nights as well. And yeah, just trying to be with my family, I guess, when I'm not at the football. And yeah, like I say, I'm going to make up for missing most of July because I was in the pre-season tour. I'm going to take them away, but we'll talk about that a little bit in a couple of weeks' time, because I'm sure you'll be very happy that I'm having a holiday. So yeah, there you go, because of transfers. There you go, right, I'm going to head off now. Apologies, like I say, if there's any sound, windows on either side, I can hear children playing in a garden over there. We've had cars going by. We haven't had the ice cream van, which has taken on a bit of a life of its own. You might have heard Indy, another character in my things that you've never actually seen. Apart from, I think his hair very briefly came up there. It wasn't me with like a hand puppet thing. But yeah, right. I'm going to head off. I am going to enjoy a bit more of that normal life. Try to for the rest of the day. And that is Indy just barking now to tell me to hurry up. So I'm going to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.